Millionaire filmmaker hires a poor student as his fake stand-in. Her acting turns his heart real. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. Rain was falling hard on the Los Angeles backlot, the kind that soaked through even the thickest raincoat. Under a mess of umbrellas and blinding studio lights, chaos ruled the set of a $30 million film. Crew members shouted, cameras rolled to a stop, and the leading actress threw down her script in fury. "Do not ever talk to me like that again," she screamed before storming off into the night, her designer heels splashing through puddles. Standing in the center of the storm was Adrian Cole, the man everyone in Hollywood called the Miracle Maker. At 36, he had built a film empire from scratch, directing blockbusters that made people cry, laugh, and dream. But right now, with the cameras off and his star gone, Adrian looked anything but powerful. His jaw tightened, his rain-soaked shirt clinging to his shoulders as he watched $1 million day crumble into nothing. "Pack it up," his assistant sighed. "We are done for tonight." Adrian said nothing. He hated wasting time, but there was no fixing a broken ego. He walked toward his car, each step echoing against the wet asphalt, his mind spinning. Tomorrow's headlines would mock him again. Cole loses control. Another actress walks out. The industry would love that. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, a small campus cafeteria buzzed with end-of-semester stress. Behind the counter, Maya Thompson, 23, balanced a tray of steaming coffee cups. Her apron was stained, her hands rough from double shifts, but her eyes burned with quiet determination. She had one goal: survive the semester and pay the tuition she still owed. When her phone buzzed with a reminder, payment due in 3 days, her chest tightened. She tucked the phone away and forced a smile for the next customer. That night, fate had other plans. As the rain poured harder, Maya stayed late to clean up. Through the fogged glass, she saw headlights cut through the parking lot. A black luxury car stopped outside the small cafeteria. The door opened, and a tall man in a drenched coat stepped in, shaking the rain from his hair. His presence drew every eye in the room. It was impossible not to notice someone who carried that quiet command. "Sorry, we are closing soon," Maya called out, grabbing a towel. "I just need something warm," he said, his voice low and tired. "Coffee, black." When she turned to hand him the cup, her eyes caught the faint streak of exhaustion behind his calm expression. There was something familiar about him, a face she had seen in movie credits or on billboards, but she could not place it. As he reached for the cup, a folder slipped from his hand and hit the floor. Dozens of photos spilled out behind-the-scenes shots, lighting notes, and a glossy poster mock-up with a bold headline: "The Last Scene, directed by Adrian Cole." Maya froze. "Wait, you are that Adrian Cole?" He gave a faint, almost self-mocking smile. "Guilty." Her jaw dropped. "You are like the Adrian Cole from before midnight?" He nodded. "And tonight, apparently, I am the Adrian Cole with no leading lady." She blinked, unsure if she had heard right. "You lost your actress?" "Walked out in the middle of a shoot," he said, leaning against the counter. "Production's frozen. The studio wants a replacement by tomorrow." Maya laughed softly, half joking, half dreaming. "You could hire me. I am dramatic when I am tired." To her surprise, Adrian looked at her, really looked. The simplicity of her face, the honesty in her voice, it felt like a breath of fresh air in a world full of pretense. He tilted his head. "What did you say your name was?" "Maya. Maya Thompson." He studied her for a moment longer, then said quietly, "Maya, how would you feel about being someone else for 10 days? She frowned. "Excuse me?" "I am serious," Adrian said. "I need a stand-in for the actress who left. Someone to appear in public, attend a few scenes, a couple of press events. It is all pretend, a contract role. You will be paid fairly." Maya stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or panic. "I am not an actress, Mr. Cole." His smile deepened. "That is exactly why you might be perfect." The rain continued to hammer outside as they stood in silence. Maya's heart pounded. It sounded crazy, impossible even, but something in his tone told her he was not joking. Finally, she whispered, "How much are we talking about?" $10,000. Half up front. Her breath caught. That was more than enough to save her semester and help her mother back home. Adrian extended his hand. "It is just business. A simple deal. Maya hesitated, then placed her trembling hand in his. And that was the moment a poor student stepped into a world where everything, including love, began as an act. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the half-closed blinds of a small apartment that smelled faintly of instant coffee and paint. Maya barely slept. The contract was still on her kitchen table, a single sheet of paper with the name Adrian Cole Productions typed in elegant font. She must have read it 20 times, each line sounding more unreal than the last. She had agreed to meet him again at noon, at his studio in downtown Los Angeles. Now, as she tied her worn sneakers and tucked her hair into a bun, the reality of it began to sink in. A millionaire filmmaker had hired her, a broke student, to pretend to be his actress. The thought made her dizzy. By the time she reached the glass tower of Cole Studios, her nerves were a mess. The building glimmered like something out of a dream. Assistants rushed through the lobby with headsets, screens flashed film posters, and every step echoed against the marble floor. She felt like an intruder. At the top floor, a sleek reception desk stood before a door engraved with his name. "Mr. Cole is expecting you," said the receptionist, barely glancing up. When Maya entered the office, Adrian was already standing by the window, coffee in hand, wearing a crisp white shirt with his sleeves rolled up. He looked calmer today, collected, composed, every inch the director the world admired. "Good morning, Maya," he said. "Did you read the terms?" She nodded. 3 rules. Do not tell anyone who I am, do not fall in love with my co-star, and leave after the gala. He raised an eyebrow, amused. "You remember them word for word. That is a good sign." Quote. She hesitated. "Why me? You could hire anyone from your agency." Adrian took a sip of coffee before answering. "Because you are not from this world. You are honest, unpredictable, and real. The cameras will believe you." Her stomach fluttered. Real. The word meant something different coming from him. An assistant burst in, holding a folder. "Sir, the replacement schedule is ready. The press thinks the actress is just recovering from an injury. We can keep up appearances for at least 2 weeks." Adrian glanced at Maya. "Then let us begin." The next days unfolded like a fever dream. Maya was rushed through makeup tests, lighting rehearsals, and endless photo shoots. Stylists swarmed her, photographers shouted directions, and every flash of the camera made her heart race. The first time she walked onto the soundstage, the crew froze, some whispering, others staring. She looked almost identical to the actress she was replacing, but with something different in her eyes. Sincerity. Adrian directed her personally. His voice was steady, his instructions sharp but patient. "Do not act," he said during one rehearsal. "Just listen, feel. The camera sees truth before talent." Maya tried her best. She stumbled over lines, laughed in the wrong moments, and once even tripped over a cable. But instead of getting angry, Adrian laughed, a sound deep and warm, surprising even to himself. "You just gave that scene more life than we had all week," he said. As the days passed, she began to notice things about him that the tabloids never showed. He stayed late after every shoot, fixing scenes himself. He never yelled at crew members, and he thanked the janitor every night. The more she watched him work, the less he seemed like a millionaire, and the more he looked like a man who had forgotten how to rest. One night, after a long shoot, the studio emptied out. The lights dimmed, leaving the two of them surrounded by quiet. Adrian was reviewing footage when Maya approached with 2 paper cups of coffee. "You should go home," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Home is overrated." "Not if you do not have one," she replied before she could stop herself. He looked at her for a long moment, then turned back to the monitor. "You remind me of someone I used to be," he murmured. The next morning, she received a message from his assistant. "Gala rehearsal at 7 p.m. Wear something formal." Her heart skipped. The gala, the final act of their deal, was closer than she thought. That evening, she arrived at the studio in a borrowed black dress. When the doors opened, Adrian stood waiting in a tailored suit, his tie undone, a quiet smirk on his face. "You clean up well," he said. "So do you," she replied, her cheeks warming. They walked into the rehearsal hall together. The lights glowed golden, the music swelled, and for a fleeting second, she forgot it was all pretend. But Adrian did not. He watched her from the corner of his eye, the way her hands trembled slightly when the photographers aimed their lenses, the way she smiled despite the pressure. She was not acting, and that scared him. Later, when the crowd left and the music faded, Maya turned to him. "Am I doing all right?" she asked quietly. Adrian paused, his gaze softening. "You are doing too well." The words hung between them like a spark. Neither moved, neither spoke. Outside, The city lights flickered against the windows, and for the first time, Adrian Cole, the man who lived behind cameras and contracts, felt something he could not control. And Maya, standing there in her borrowed dress, began to wonder if pretending was just another way of telling the truth. A week passed, and the contract started to feel less like a deal and more like a secret they both protected. Every morning, Maya arrived early to rehearse lines, and every night Adrian stayed late to watch playback. Somewhere between takes and coffee breaks, their rhythm fell into place. The crew began to notice. When Adrian gave her notes, his tone softened. When Maya laughed, he listened longer than he should have. Rumors spread quietly, but neither of them said a word. They were, after all, playing a part. One afternoon, Adrian called for a private rehearsal. The scene was simple, a rooftop conversation between lovers who could not admit their feelings. The irony was not lost on either of them. "Forget the camera," Adrian said, standing across from her. "Just look at me. Pretend I am not the director." Quote. Maya nodded, though her heart was already racing. The lights glowed like dusk. The city skyline glittered in the distance, and for a moment, it felt real. She began the line softly. "What if it was never acting?" Adrian held her gaze. "Then we would both be in trouble." Silence followed, long enough for both to realize the truth behind their own dialogue. The crew clapped when the scene ended, but Adrian dismissed them quickly. He could not shake the feeling that he had just crossed an invisible line. Later that night, Maya sat alone in her small apartment, replaying the moment in her head. His eyes, the quiet in his voice, it was not part of the script. She opened her phone, scrolled through news headlines, and saw his name again. Adrian Cole's next hit could save his studio. Her stomach twisted. She reminded herself that she was only temporary. The next morning, Adrian waited by the studio gate. When Maya arrived, he handed her a small paper bag. "Breakfast," he said simply. "You forget to eat when you are nervous." She blinked in surprise. "How would you know I am nervous?" He smiled. "Because I am too." Inside the bag was a plain bagel and a handwritten note. "For luck, not for show." She tucked it into her coat pocket like a secret charm. That evening, they attended their first live interview together. Cameras flashed, questions flew, and Maya tried to keep her composure. One reporter leaned forward. "Mr. Cole, people say your new leading lady has a unique spark. Is it true you discovered her by chance?" Adrian chuckled. "You could say that. She reminded me that truth is better than perfection." Maya felt her cheeks flush. The crowd laughed, but she sensed something deeper behind his words. After the interview, as they walked out into the cool night air, she asked quietly, "Why do you keep defending me?" "Because you deserve to be here," he said without hesitation. "Not as a replacement, but as yourself." His words landed like a promise she was afraid to believe. Days blurred into nights. The film neared completion, and the gala drew closer. Adrian grew quieter, distracted. He spent hours in the editing room, ignoring calls from investors and sponsors. Something was weighing on him. One night, she found him alone, sitting on the edge of the soundstage, the glow of the city beyond the open doors. "You are not sleeping," she said, stepping closer. He looked up, his expression tired. "The studio is pressuring me to replace you for the finale scene. They think using a real actress will sell better." Her breath caught. "You agreed?" "Not yet," he said softly. "I told them no. But I cannot protect you forever, Maya. This industry is cruel." Quote. She swallowed hard. "Then let me finish what I started. I knew this was pretend, Adrian. I just did not expect it to feel like anything more." For the first time, he looked at her without the guard of professionalism. "You were never pretending," he said quietly. "Not to me." Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. He turned away, the screen lighting his face with cold blue light. "Tomorrow, we face the press again," he said after a pause. "It might get messy." Quote. Maya nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Then I will act my part." That night, as she walked home through the sleeping streets of Los Angeles, she finally understood what scared her most. It was not the lies, or the cameras, or even the end of the contract. It was how real he had become to her, and how impossible it would be to walk away when the final scene ended. The next day began with flashing lights and questions shouted across the red carpet. The premiere gala for the last scene was supposed to be a celebration, but for Maya, it felt like walking into a storm. Reporters surrounded her the moment she stepped out of the car, microphones catching every nervous breath. "Miss Thompson, how does it feel to work with Adrian Cole? Are the rumors true that you're his new muse?" She forced a smile and repeated the answers she had practiced. "It has been an honor. Mr. Cole is brilliant to work with." But inside, her heart was pounding. This was the final night of their deal. After tonight, she would disappear back into the ordinary world, while he stayed in the one made of light and cameras. Adrian arrived moments later, calm and immaculate in a black suit. The crowd roared when he offered his arm to her. Cameras flashed like lightning as they walked together into the ballroom. On the surface, it was all glamour. Underneath, both of them knew it was borrowed time. During the gala, producers and investors lined up to praise him. Maya stood to the side, smiling politely, invisible again. But every now and then, Adrian's eyes found hers across the room. The look said more than words ever could. The illusion shattered when a tabloid reporter cornered her near the buffet table. He shoved a phone screen toward her face. "Care to comment on this?" he asked. The screen showed a photo of Maya at her cafe job apron, messy hair, tired eyes captioned, "Fake star exposed," the coffee girl behind the camera. Her throat tightened. "Where did you get that?" he smirked. "Sources say Adrian Cole hired a broke student to fake his public image. Was this your idea or his?" Before she could speak, Adrian appeared, stepping between them. "That is enough," he said, his tone sharp. The reporter backed off, but the damage was already done. People nearby had heard everything. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Adrian guided her out through a side door into the quiet hallway. She could see the anger in his eyes, not at her, but at himself. "I should have seen this coming," he muttered. "They were waiting for something like this." Maya's voice shook. "It was bound to happen. It was never real, remember?" His gaze softened. "It was real to me." The words stopped her breath. But before she could reply, his phone rang again. The studio executive's voice spilled through the speaker, cold and businesslike. "You need to fix this, Adrian. Issue a statement. Deny everything. Call it a publicity stunt before the stock drops." He ended the call, jaw tense. "They want me to lie." "You do not have to protect me," Maya whispered. "I knew what I was agreeing to." Adrian looked at her, torn between duty and truth. Finally, he said quietly, "Go home, Maya. Let me handle it." She shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "You mean let you erase me?" He reached out, but she stepped back. "I do not belong here, Adrian. I never did." Then she turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the hallway as the music from the ballroom faded behind them. That night, Maya packed her few belongings. The city outside her window glittered as if mocking her. The $10,000 sat untouched in an envelope on her table. She had done everything she promised. She had played the part. Meanwhile, across town, Adrian sat in his dark office, staring at the same contract he had once written. The words, "No real emotions on set," glared back at him like a curse. He picked up a pen, signed his name at the bottom, then tore the paper clean in half. Outside, the first light of dawn crept over Los Angeles. Both of them were awake, miles apart, but bound by the same truth. Neither could deny what began as an act had become something they could no longer control. For the next few days, the headlines refused to fade. Every news outlet replayed the same story, Adrian Cole's fake actress scandal. Commentators mocked his judgment, sponsors withdrew their support, and investors called for his resignation. The empire he had built from years of work began to crack overnight. Adrian stopped answering calls. He stayed locked in his office, surrounded by unfinished reels and the cold glow of screens. Outside, the studio gates were swarmed by reporters demanding a statement. Inside, silence became his only defense. Meanwhile, Maya tried to return to normal life, but normal no longer existed. The cafe fired her after the gossip reached campus. Some classmates avoided her, others whispered. Every time she opened her phone, a new article appeared with her photo, "The Coffee Girl Who Fooled Hollywood." One evening, she visited her mother's small apartment outside the city. The older woman looked frail but kind, holding Maya's hands with quiet strength. "You did nothing wrong," her mother said softly. "You told the truth. The rest is their noise." Maya smiled weakly. "I thought I was strong enough to play their game. I was not." Her mother touched her cheek. "Then stop playing. Live as yourself again." That night, Maya lay awake listening to the sound of rain against the roof. She thought about Adrian, the man who had believed in her when no one else did. She had left him to face the storm alone. At the same time, Adrian stood in front of a mirror in his dark apartment, his reflection exhausted. The phone on his desk buzzed again, another demand for a press conference, another request to spin the story. He stared at the screen, then turned away. The truth was simple. He did not care about the movie anymore. He cared about the girl he had hurt. The next morning, he walked out of his building without telling anyone. No entourage, no security. Just him, a coffee in one hand and determination in his eyes. When Maya opened her door later that day, she froze. Adrian stood there, soaked from the rain, his hair plastered to his forehead. "I needed to see you," he said quietly. She stepped aside, unsure what to say. The air between them was heavy with everything left unsaid. "I tried to protect the film," he continued, "but I should have protected you instead. I told the world it was a publicity stunt, and I hated myself for it." Quote, Maya looked down. "You did what you had to do." "No," he said firmly. "I did what they told me to do. I forgot who I was, the man who once believed truth mattered." She looked up at him then, her eyes shining with tears. "What are you going to do now?" Adrian took a deep breath. "Tell the truth. All of it. About you, about the film, about how this started." He pulled a small folded note from his pocket, her cafe schedule from weeks ago. "I kept this," he said. "It reminded me that not everything real needs a script." Maya felt her chest tighten. "They will destroy you," he smiled faintly. "Then let them. I am done pretending." Outside, thunder rolled across the city, but for the first time, both of them stood still. The contract that once separated their worlds was gone, and what remained was something neither fame nor scandal could take away: the courage to face the truth, even if it cost everything. The next morning, Los Angeles woke up to chaos again. But this time, it was a different kind of noise. Social media exploded after Adrian Cole went live from his personal account, something he had never done before. His face appeared on every screen. No filters, no lighting tricks, just truth. "I owe everyone honesty," he said, his voice steady but raw. "The woman you have seen called a fake actress is Maya Thompson. She is not a celebrity, not a scandal. She was hired to help finish a film that was falling apart, and she did it with more heart and integrity than anyone I have ever worked with. If you want to know who saved this production, it was her." He paused, his eyes heavy with emotion. "And if you need a villain, look at me. I created this lie. I used her name to protect a brand instead of a person. I was wrong." The clip spread faster than any trailer he had ever released. Within hours, fans flooded comment sections with support for Maya. Hashtags turned from insults to apologies. "Stand with Maya" trended across every platform. Maya watched the video from her apartment, her hands trembling. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. He had done the one thing no one in his position ever did. He had taken the blame. Her phone rang nonstop, calls from journalists and talent agencies, but she ignored them all. There was only one person she wanted to speak to. By evening, she found herself back at the studio gates. Security guards recognized her immediately, stepping aside without a word. Inside, the soundstage was empty, the lights dim. Adrian stood near the center, facing a blank screen where their film's final scene had been projected hours earlier. When he turned and saw her, relief washed over his face. "You came. I saw what you did," she said softly. "You did not have to risk everything." He smiled faintly. "I had already lost everything that mattered when you walked away." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The silence felt fragile, almost sacred. Then Maya stepped closer. "You told the truth," she said. "That means something." "It does," he replied. "But it will not save the film. The studio is pulling funding. We are done." She shook her head. Maybe the film was never the point. Quote. Adrian looked at her, truly seeing her, not as an actress or a mistake, but as the woman who had reminded him what real meant. "You changed the way I see everything," he said. "I used to think art was about perfection. Now I know it is about honesty." Maya smiled, tears gathering in her eyes. "You taught me that pretending can only take you so far. At some point you have to feel it." Adrian reached out slowly, his hand brushing hers. "So what now?" She took a deep breath. "Now we stop acting." The city lights shimmered through the tall studio windows, casting them in soft gold. For the first time, there was no contract, no script, no cameras, just two people standing where fiction had ended and something real had finally begun. The following week, the media storm reached its breaking point. The studio officially announced that the last scene had been canceled, citing irreconcilable creative differences. Investors backed out, partnerships dissolved, and Adrian Cole's production company lost nearly everything overnight. For the first time in 15 years, the man known for perfection had nothing left to protect. But for Maya, everything was changing in the opposite direction. The world that had once mocked her was now curious about her. Messages poured in from casting directors, talk shows, and independent filmmakers who wanted to hear her story. Every offer came with promises of fame and fortune, but she ignored them all. None of it felt right without him. On the 7th morning after his confession, Maya stood in front of the same coffee shop where she had first met Adrian. The sign above the door flickered faintly, the same way it had that rainy night. She ordered 2 black coffees and waited. When he finally appeared, he looked different, worn but lighter, as if the truth had taken the weight off his shoulders. "You look tired," she said. He smiled. Freedom does that to people. They sat by the window, the same spot where their story had begun. Outside, Los Angeles moved at its usual restless pace, unaware of the quiet peace between them. "I heard they dropped you from every project," she said. "They did," he replied calmly. "Turns out honesty is not good for business." Maya's lips curved into a soft smile. "Then maybe you should start something new." Adrian looked at her, curious. "Like what?" "Something that does not need pretending," she said. "Something real." Her words lingered in the air, warm and certain. Later that afternoon, they walked through the empty halls of the old studio one last time. The posters of past films lined the walls, reminders of all the stories Adrian had told that were beautiful but never true. He stopped in front of a blank wall and turned to her. "I have been thinking," he said slowly. "What if we finish the film not for the studio but for ourselves? No scripts, no contracts. Just a story about 2 people who stopped lying." Maya hesitated. "You mean start over?" He nodded. "Exactly. Start from where the act ended." She looked around the dark soundstage, the quiet hum of equipment still lingering like ghosts of their past scenes. "If we do this," she said, "it cannot be another fantasy. It has to be about truth, the messy kind." Adrian smiled. "That is the only kind I want now." They stood there for a long time, letting the silence say everything words could not. The man who had once hidden behind the camera now looked at her as if seeing the world for the first time. When they finally left the studio, the sunset stretched across the sky in deep gold and rose. The light hit their faces, and for a moment, the reflection in the glass doors looked like a still frame from a film, not a perfect one, but a real one. For the first time since it all began, there was no script to follow, no deadline to chase. Just 2 people walking into an uncertain future, unafraid, because this time the story was finally theirs to tell. A month passed quietly after the collapse of the last scene. The world had already moved on to the next scandal, but for Adrian and Maya, life had finally slowed into something simple. They rented a small warehouse on the edge of the city, turning it into a bare-bones studio with borrowed lights and second-hand equipment. No producers, no executives, no expectations, only them, a camera, and a blank script waiting to be written. Every morning they met there to work. Adrian handled the setup, while Maya drafted story ideas on sticky notes plastered across the wall. At first it felt strange. There were no headlines, no deadlines, only quiet determination. The film they wanted to make was not about fame or success. It was about honesty, the story of 2 people who learned that truth mattered more than perfection. One afternoon, while they adjusted the lights for a test scene, Maya laughed as the stand collapsed with a loud clatter. Adrian rushed to help, but she was already sitting on the floor, laughing uncontrollably. "Do you realize," she said between breaths, "that we are making a movie about failure, and we cannot even get the lighting right?" He sat beside her, smiling. "That is exactly why it will work. Because it is real." For the first time in years, he was not chasing approval. He was creating for the love of it again. Watching Maya work reminded him why he had started filmmaking in the first place, to capture truth in motion, not to sell an illusion. When the short film was finally complete, they called it Real. It ran for 23 minutes, shot entirely in their tiny studio. No glamour, no sponsors, no red carpet. Just quiet moments, her laughter, his reflections, the sound of rain on the roof. They uploaded it online one night without promotion or press release. Then they forgot about it. 2 weeks later, messages began flooding in. Viewers from around the world wrote about how Real made them cry, how it reminded them that love was not a performance. Independent festivals called, asking to feature it. Adrian read every message in disbelief. The project that had cost nothing had reached more hearts than all his $1 million films combined. When he told Maya, she simply smiled. "You see, the truth sells after all." Cree. Adrian looked at her, the woman who had once been a stranger in a coffee shop, now sitting across from him as his partner in every sense of the word. "No," he said softly, "the truth does not sell, it stays." Outside, the sunset poured through the high windows, wrapping them in gold. There was no applause, no spotlight, only the quiet understanding that what they had created together was more lasting than any award. The story that began as a contract had become a confession, and this time, it was one neither of them ever wanted to end. A year later, the warehouse that had once been empty now felt like a second home. The old concrete walls were covered with film posters, sketches, and handwritten notes, each one a piece of the journey they had built together. Reel had quietly become a phenomenon. It won small festival awards, but more importantly, it inspired a movement of young filmmakers who wanted to tell honest stories again. Adrian and Maya never chased the spotlight. They kept their studio small, hiring students, artists, and dreamers who reminded them of where it all began. Their days were filled with work, laughter, and the steady rhythm of creation. Fame had lost its meaning. What mattered was purpose. On the anniversary of their film's release, Adrian called for a team meeting. When Maya arrived, the lights were dimmed, and the projector cast a warm glow on the far wall. A new video began to play clips from their journey together. The cafe where they met, the first rehearsal, the night of the storm. Every memory flashed by like a heartbeat. Maya turned to him, smiling through tears. "You made this?" Adrian nodded. "I wanted to remind you how far we have come." Cuddy. When the video ended, the screen faded to black, and words appeared. The story was never about the movie. It was about you. Adrian stood, walking toward her. "When I met you, I thought I was saving my film. I did not know you would end up saving my life." Maya laughed softly. "You are still too dramatic for your own good." He smiled. "Then let me be dramatic one more time." From his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. Maya froze as he opened it. Inside was a simple gold ring. Elegant and unpretentious, like everything they had built together. "I do not have a script for this," he said quietly. "No contracts, no rules, no scenes, just one question." He took her hand gently. "Will you stay? Not as a role, but as my partner in life? In every story that comes next?" Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Adrian. Always yes." Gua. The small crew in the back of the room erupted into applause, but Adrian barely heard it. He slipped the ring on her finger, and for the first time in years, the perfectionist filmmaker let the world blur around him. Outside, the Los Angeles sky was painted in orange and pink. The same rain that had once introduced them now began to fall softly against the windows, as if blessing the moment. Maya leaned her head against his shoulder. "Funny, is it not?" she whispered. "We started with a fake story and somehow ended up living a real one." Adrian tightened his arm around her. "That is the best twist I have ever written." The camera they had left recording captured it all: the quiet laughter, the soft rain, and two people who had turned fiction into truth. As the screen faded to black, the final words appeared. "Sometimes, the greatest love stories begin as an act."